Hey everybody, I'm back with another comic book review, and it's my first Daredevil comic review, if you can believe that. Never really got down to reviewing a Daredevil comic, and I think it's crucial that I review this particular one because next month, uh, the new season of Daredevil Born Again will be released on Disney Plus, which a lot of people are very hyped for. Even though I think like the last season uh was kind of a born again esque type of situation, but this is like a true born again thing, I guess. With one of Daredevil's newest or new-ish villains, Muse, showing up, and the possible return of Bullseye, and then definite return of uh, Karen Page, Foggy, and Punisher, and of course the Kingpin, obviously. So I figured, like, let's return to Daredevil Born Again, which I think I only read once in my life. So this probably is like my return to it. One of the best Daredevil stories uh, throughout the entire his catalog of stories. This, of course, is written by Frank Miller, who I think around the same time, at least prior to this, did uh, Batman Returns comic, which, I read and seen the animated film, and I'm not like, personally, I don't care for it. I know it's, considered one of the best Batman stories, but honestly, I personally was not a fan of, the Batman Returns comic. I do like the Batman Returns movie, the live action, Michelle Pfeiffer one. I do love that. Uh, but that's the only Batman Returns I actually like. But anyway, art was done by Massacelli. So here we go. So uh, we begin where most Daredevil stories typically go, where Matt is down in the dumps, feeling like it's very. He has this whole martyrism thing going on, where it's like everything falls on his shoulders. It's like something goes wrong is all on him, and very self pity type of mood right now. And doesn't feel like things in his life ain't going the way he wants to. He's in between like lawyer gigs, I guess, but he's still kind of doing well for himself despite all that, at least for now. But then there's been a series of break-ins caused by don't know if you call himself Gladiator, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Gladiator. Where if you've seen the TV show, that kind of mentally, you know, uh, not trying to use the R word, but you know what I mean, because he seemingly has some type of that kind of level, a certain level of mental state of like that, where he always looking for his girl Betsy, and somebody end up kidnapping her and forcing him to commit these burglary crimes, which lead to Matt, who painstakingly got him, reformed, and kept him out of prison and all this other stuff. Now he feels like, oh, all that was for naught. So you're just like any random criminal. So now my sympathy is out the freaking window. So I gotta find you and deal with you. All the while, and honestly, this is probably my least favorite part in this entire story, with this whole Foggy Nelson and this Gloria woman, this very Irish, you know, super Irish lady who uh was in some type of relationship with Matt, but not anymore because thanks to his double life, uh, she kind of think he's unreliable and a flake, and distant. While Foggy's trying to big up his boy, saying getting her stories about how like he's always there for them, there for him. And one time in college, when he was trying to join this fraternity, somebody's going to seriously haze him, but he suspects that something he couldn't confirm, but he believes that Matt somehow interceded and beat up that guy for him who was about to do something dangerous. But then these two end up falling in love somehow. It turns into some weird rom-com out of the blue. Like I said, I don't even really care. I'm just giving you the breakdown because I'm probably not going to cover all that freaking much. But thanks to Gladiator leaving a message, because he feels bad, but he knows he has to do it in order to keep Betsy safe. He feels bad, so he calls Matt, his lawyer, and of course, as Daredevil, he listens to it. He leaves a message saying where he's going to be, he needs help. So Daredevil shows up, and they get into, of course, a fight. And then, of course, he starts, Gladiator starts breaking down, feeling, bad because he's doing all this for Betsy. And of course, she's, all tied up by these crooks. Thanks to some sleuthing and following one of the criminals, they track down Betsy and they beat up the crooks holding her hostage. So that ends this whole situation. It's kind of like setting up, where Daredevil is mentally and emotionally. Now we're in Mexico, where Karen Page is high on not sure which drug. Don't know, it was like smack. She's high on smack because she was the secretary of Franklin, Nelson and Murdoch law firm. Just like in the TV show, we get to learn about Karen's backstory, and in that one episode where it's probably my least favorite episode, in all honesty. They could have just broke it down into like maybe 10 minutes of time. But yeah, most people who are familiar with Karen Page in the comics, she used to be a junkie. So she, quit being their secretary to become an actress in Hollywood. But that didn't work out too well. She got hooked on drugs, and then she started, appearing in, adult films, put it that way. And not only like the good kind, the very seedy ones, Mexico seedy. That's why she, not Mexico City, Mexico seedy, SEEDY type of films. And she got even more hooked on drugs. And when she kind of ran out of money, she pretty much sold out the secret identity to Daredevil, a secret identity of Daredevil to one of these crooks, just to get another fix. And that information ends up following up the chain, going all the way up to Wilson Fisk's Kingpin, who, upon getting that information, tells his associate Wesley to kill anybody who knows this information. So whoever this letter kind of changed hands with, they all gotta die. Uh, which all goes fall right back down to Karen Page. Now, if you were asking like, why would anybody buy? Why would Wilson uh buy this information? Like, why would he just accept, or anybody for that matter, to accept this as gospel? No pun intended. But a long time ago, Fisk, because he tangled with Daredevil enough times leading up to this point, where he had put out feelers that any information regarding Daredevil that anybody gets should come straight to him, no matter how small. So that's why he's willing to take this. But even still, he has somebody follow him in order to follow him in order to kind of confirm it, or at least do a particular deed in order to confirm it, which ends up happening. One morning, Daredevil wakes up with a letter holding a subpoena because, thanks to Fisk's influence, he is suspected of perjury, witness tampering, money laundering, stuff with the IRS. So his accounts are frozen. He's been disbarred, and at least thanks to Foggy, at least he's not in prison. So his pretty much livelihood is completely in shambles. And after monitoring the situation, including a moment where one cop who was on a witness stand pretty much perjured himself, lying that Matt coerce witnesses and do all this back alley stuff during his tenure as a lawyer. As it turns out that he made all that stuff up because Wilson Fisk pretty much funding his son's medical bills because his son is very sick and needs like a particular like this expensive medical assistance. And Daredevil ends up showing up to question why is he's and not only him but other people, like why you going after Matt Murdock. So it pretty much confirms like this lawyer randomly getting going through all this strife, but then all of a sudden Daredevil shows up asking about him. So it's like this pretty much too much of a coincidence. But then one day, while Karen's trying to find find her dealer, she discovers he just been murdered by one of Fisk's goons. Now she's running for her life. She realized, oh, I made a mistake. Well, she already knew, but now she knows like her life is in danger, and the only person she can go to is Matt. Of course, she's been like aware long before she left for Hollywood, because her and Matt was in a relationship, and she knew about his, secret identity that he conveyed to her. So now she realized, I got to get back to New York. I got to get out of Mexico, but I don't have any money, so I got to figure out a way to do so. She ended up finding this other dealer named Pablo, and he, in exchange for sexual favors, gets her across the country and get into New York. As Matt is on his way back to his apartment, it completely blows up in front of him, leaving nothing but the remains of his Daredevil costume. And I love this line of dialogue from Matt, where he's like, you know, like before now, I didn't know, none of this makes sense to me. But hold on, I want to not misquote this. I never would have connected it to you. Nothing about it said gangster until this. It was a nice piece of work, Kingpin. You shouldn't have signed it. So I love that. It's like you had to put your damn name on it. Because you could have, it's just like with the Riddler. You would have gotten away with it if you haven't had to put your freaking signature on it just to telegraph that, yeah, it was me. Because your ego would not allow you to not rub it in my face. So now, with his assets frozen, he doesn't have much money in his own wallet, so he only can afford to pay for a seedy motel where, despite the window being closed and it's snowing outside, cold air is blowing through, and because of his heightened senses, he hears, feels everything. So he can't, and smells everything. So he can't really be all that comfortable. And on top of that, he's not feeling well, and he's paranoid. And at this point, he can't go to Foggy because, every time, calls him, like Gloria picks up and calls her, he picks up. It's like, oh, they're both against me. Everybody's against me. He's completely, out of sorts. You can't trust anybody at this point because you don't know, who Fisk got in their pocket. He once tried to call Ben Urich, who works at the Daily Bugle, but he knows that Matt is Daredevil, but he doesn't know that Foggy is either aware or not aware. But he doesn't believe half the stuff they're saying about Matt Murdock, so he's trying to run an investigation. Of course, Fisk also has Matt followed, because Matt, at this point, after he leaves his motel and choking out the landlord because he thinks it's one of Fisk's goons coming after him, he's not in the headspace to take on the Kingpin, but he manages to stuff some muggers, and he ends up beating up a cop on accident. He's not focused. He ends up to Fisk's office, beating up people along the way to the top, and tries to take on Fisk, where clearly he's not ready. But he's too stubborn to realize this and too paranoid on top of that. So, of course, he get his ass mollywopped. And so, Fisk kills a cabbie, have the car stolen, put Matt in a driver's seat, pour like alcohol over him, and have the car careen into the lake. So that way, it seemed like, oh, he's a drunk driver kind of thing. All this was a complete accident, but because he's too stubborn to die, he managed to escape, but he ends up, sleeping in a gutter with a bunch of other homeless. So now he's hitting like rock bottom. He's got his butt kicked, livelihood taken away. He's kind of exiled from his friends. He's not feeling well. He's as rock bottom you can possibly get. But luckily, some nice nuns take him and a bunch of the other winos to the local church where uh, he can get some nice needed treatment back to health because he's not all there. Okay, so I can get like another slide prepared. So, while that's going on, Ben goes to question the police officer, try to ask him some questions, and come to see that, oh, wow, you got a sick kid. And these medical bills, I imagine, is not cheap. How can you afford it on a cop's salary? Uh, but of course, all that lying and, because he wasn't a dirty cop before until this moment where when it comes to his own kid, he was willing to do anything. So he pretty much made a deal with the devil in order to save his own son, which was all for naught because the kid ended up dying anyway. So now he's like, oh, I got nothing to lose. So he decides to go to talk with this reporter. And of course, Fisk has this burly looking nurse comes down and deal with it. Oh wow. Kind of skipped over a certain part where before he's picked up by the nuns, we see Turk. If you remember from the Netflix Marvel shows, Turk, nearly the one constant besides maybe Karen Page, showing up to try to disguise him and his partner disguise himself as like March of Dime Santas. Matt sees this and tells him to take off the freaking suit. He ends up getting shanked for his troubles. I think like kudos to the Netflix shows, at least at the time, bringing in like a low-level thug like Turk in, because I'm pretty sure somebody read Daredevil Born Again and saw Turk and was like, oh wow, he make a good like character to throw in here, like a low-level criminal that kind of gives the superhero some kind of info. But the next time I recall Turk being in like a semi-prominent role in like a Marvel adventure was in this storyline called Infinity Warps, where for some reasons the writers have Gamora go crazy, stealing the Infinity Stones, and then instead of wiping out half the universe, she folded people into one another to make combo characters like Moon Knight and Spider-Man to make Arachnite. And of course, prior to that, certain people have an Infinity Stone, and Turk being one of them. And that's probably the only other time I can think of Turk being very prominent in like a Marvel story. Anyway, through all that, pain and sickness and everything like that, he gets found by Sister Maggie, who, if you know enough about Daredevil's history, you know Sister Maggie is actually Matt's mom, who abandoned her after she gave birth to Matt, abandoned him and the dad, leaving them because she just wasn't prepared to be a mom, but she always kept some kind of watchful eye over them after she joined a convent. And matter of fact, she was there unbeknownst to young Matt after the radioactive isotopes fell into his eyes, blinding him, and he was in the hospital before the dad showed up. She showed up uh, to, take a moment to care for him, give him a kiss, and give him some words of wisdom and stuff like that. And that was the first time he had interactions with her, but he didn't know that was his mom. And then this is probably the second time in so many years that he had interaction with his mom, which he does suspect. So after her and the other nuns nurses him, you can see a lot of Jesus imagery, that you probably recall from certain paintings, like Jesus being held by his mother. That image, very reminiscent to what we have here, and of course, the way Matt is laid out, like Jesus on the cross kind of situation. As part of course, Matt is a devout Catholic, so you got to have these kind of things in a Daredevil story. It's kind of like a must. So they help with him nursing back to health, breaking his fever, all that stuff. Of course, that nurse shows up and kills, or at least not totally kills, but definitely seriously wounds the cop, but then breaks Ben Urich's fingers in order to teach him a lesson, like, hey, keep your mouth shut, because people are almost everywhere. The fact that, and I won't say this is early Ben Urich, but normally Ben Urich that we typically know of wouldn't be scared away from a story, and he's got more guts than you realize. But this is pretty early on-ish. This is before how serious things could get with somebody like the Kingpin. He felt to realize. So yeah, he got a little scared, which surprises J. Jonah, where he mentions that, he knows that, okay, clearly you're being intimidated, but, whatever you're being intimidated by, you have the greatest power. It shows, Jonah has a heart, and shows that, despite everything, he has, he doesn't let things get to him, because he knows that, the power of the paper is our greatest weapon. It can take down presidents. That is your greatest power. So, whatever's going on, don't let that, scare you off. Because they're more scared of you, because that's why they go through all these tactics. But, this really ain't sinking in yet with Ben. Not until when the cop wakes up from his coma and tries to call Ben Urich to still want to, give his statement. Then the nurse shows up, has Ben listening on the phone as he has to be forced to listen as she is choking this man to death. But instead of scaring him, he decides, like, no, I'm not going to be scared. No. This is going far enough. It's like, then he's just like, oh, we're going to do something. I got to do something about this. I want to tell what I know. Going back to Foggy, where he, because Karen finally makes it all the way up to New York, despite dealing with Pablo, who not only is taking advantage of her, but clearly abusing her. But she managed to get in contact with Foggy, and he's, like, I'm not letting you go back to that guy. No, you're staying with me. Trying to keep her safe, realizing that she probably went went through some like horrific stuff. Uh, so once Matt, you know, his mind is clear and his fever broke and he's, you know, more or less together, he asks point blank to Sister Maggie because he can sense a certain smell of her that's very reminiscent to what, you know, kind of scent he has in a way. And he asks her point blank, "Are you my mother?" And she was like, "Of course not, my dear." And he listened to her heartbeat. It skipped. She's lying. This is my mother. But he isn't calling her on it. And then going back to Fisk, where his associates have to bring up, at least one of them at this point, bringing up to him, like, look, we understand that every once in a while you indulge in your certain vendettas, which is more than okay, but it's starting to eat away, you know, at our profits. You keep, you know, going after this one guy, because clearly, like, Fisk doesn't suffer any fools, especially someone like Daredevil, who pretty much cost him a lot of money and a lot of resources to take, you know, him down and stop his criminal empire. He took that very personally. So this is all personal. So he's willing to sacrifice whatever amount of resources he has in order to really stick it to him, especially knowing he's alive somewhere. But Wilson Fisk doesn't like to be told off. So he tells the guy, look, here's a check. I'm buying you out. If you don't take the check, I will kill your family. So later on, he tells Wesley, Wesley brings up the fact that he's planning on going on some kind of ski trip. He tells him, break both of his legs. You know, just because he's such a petty bastard. It's like certain villains can be so petty, like Reverse Flash, you know, because despite killing any boyfriend his ex left him for, just so he can be only person left is him that she should be with, she still said no. So he goes, you know, traveling back in time to turn into an invalid, because like fine, because he's so petty. I do appreciate certain petty villains like this. If you had the resources, you know, and the pettiness to back it up, why wouldn't you? Or if you had the pettiness and the resources to back it up, you know, you'd be scarce to find people who wouldn't act on it to at least some degree. Maybe not to the same degree as maybe Kingpin, but to some degree. So Ben Urich ends up going to the police, giving his statement, let him know what happened to the cop and everything like that with Fisk. So they decided to give him like an escort. And the nurse who caused the death of that cop, don't know why he didn't bring up her on charges or brought her in, but of course Matt, who's, you know, taking, you know, part-time at a diner that Ben Urich's talking with this cop is in, getting this information because he's trying to, you know, find some level of, to make some money since assets are frozen. He overhears about the whole situation and follows them. The cop gets sucker punched, and because the nurse is in Ben Urich's apartment hanging his wife, he managed to cut her down. All the while, Matt shows up, beats up the nurse, and ties her up. And you know, luckily Ben Urich managed to save his wife. But this was definitely the last straw, so he definitely going to make sure this sticks. Then Paulo, who managed to track down Karen to Foggy's apartment, Foggy ends up calling the cops, who end up showing up. But this dude pulls out a piece, shoots both of them, causing this massive commotion. And of course, Fisk also has people telling the situation because they want to. They broke out a mentally unstable person to disguise himself as Daredevil, who they got the Gladiator to make a new costume for, which is why he ends up calling Ben Urich to inform him what's going on down. Matt overhears that over the phone, ends up rushing to Foggy's apartment. Karen knocks out Foggy in order to run away, so that way he won't be in danger because this guy's going after her. While a shootout happens on the ground, at least this fake Daredevil is instructed by one of Fisk's goons to go to 5B. And the crazy dude ends up taking one of the billy clubs that was given to him. He beats the goon, goes to 5B in order to wreak havoc. But luckily, Matt shows up, beats this guy with some pressure point moves, strips him of the costume, races to save Karen. Paulo gets killed, and the goons that are shooting at him gets killed, and Matt ends up saving Karen. And there's certain poses, this one page poses like I really love. The art in this is phenomenal. Not one of my favorites, but it's still pretty good. This is the pencil art and the shading. All that looks good. Then Fisk is like, okay, I need to throw in some heavy hitters. So if you remember from the Jessica Jones series, there's this character called Nuke. And Nuke in the comics is just another one of those failed or semi-successful experiments in an attempt to make another super soldier. But in Nuke's case, he's powered up by these pills. One's like red and the other white and blue. The red gives him like enhanced like adrenaline and toughen him up a bit, but it's causes him to be a little bit mentally unstable. The whites mellow him out, and the blues calms him down. And so Fisk, who happens to have a general in his pocket, requests to have Nuke to be brought to Hell's Kitchen to supposedly just cause some like property damage in order to draw out Daredevil. While Nuke is on his way, Gloria, who I guess is some kind of photographer, ends up starting to work at the Bugle as Ben's photographer. And it's like, okay, you kind of jumping the gun. When did this just happen? It's like, but Ben goes to question the nurse, but one of the guards turns out to work for Fisk, ends up, along with one of the escorts of Ben Urich, ends up killing the nurse, killing the other police escort. Not before the other police escort managed to get a shot from one of the cops, and Ben managed to get one of the guns, and while Gloria stupidly slash smartly taking pictures instead of like trying to help the situation, Ben managed to grab one of the guns and beat the other guy to death, which thankfully she managed to capture it on her camera. So now there's photo evidence of this level of influence that Fisk has been wielding uh, uh, to such a degree. Okay. A final slide. So Nuke finally shows up in New York, meeting with Fisk, and this a-hole really like taking advantage of the guy's super patriotism, and like giving his song and dance about how he feels about America and how this certain people like the media and Daredevil, who are the true villains, paint him as some type of criminal and all this other stuff, and of course he buys into that. Uh, so once uh, Nuke is dropped in uh, in Hell's Kitchen, he's pretty much getting this big machine gun and starts laying down fire in this neighborhood, causing not only property damage, but a lot of people are dying. Uh, a lot of people are wounded, including Karen Page, who's staying with Matt. Has his costume, and she kept it safe for him despite her being wounded. And of course, Gloria is also wounded, who stops being a priority after a certain period. Because honestly, if there's like a weak link in this story, is Gloria. I really don't care for that lady personally. I'm pretty sure prior to this, she was kind of like a big deal, but in terms of the list of Daredevil's love interests, she is way, way low on the totem pole. I don't think anybody really remembers her until somebody brings up Born Again. It's like, oh yeah, the Irish chick. Yeah. Anyway, so Matt dons his Daredevil costume, and you get this awesome art cover of him just walking through fire, ready to take on Nuke. And despite his martial arts skills, Nuke's skin is too doggone tough, so he has to utilize other means. And despite Wesley crying out to Fisk, like, look, we gotta stop. This is getting insane. The whole entire neighborhood is, it's coming down. But it's like, we got certain people bought off. Don't worry about it. It's like, dude, like, what the heck? He just, it kind of reminds me of like in season 1, as his, girl Vanessa is watching on as spots in the neighborhood of Hell's Kitchen is blowing up, and she just standing there as he's looking on. It's pretty much like that. But Daredevil managed to take down Nuke. But just then, the Avengers show up. And I like this moment where they look like, because they're the Avengers, and Daredevil is one of those street level heroes. People look up upon them like they're like essentially gods above us, and we're just lowly, the lowly people here. Captain America is pretty much like leading the charge, because Iron Man shows up, Thor shows up, I love how they're mostly silhouetted, but you know who they are. Uh, Thor brings down the storm to quell the fires. Uh, Cap gives a lot of people orders, letting what people need to do, and emergency responders. He helps Gloria, who's got wounded, helps her up, while Iron Man's telling Daredevil, uh, "Look, the man's down. Release him. Do not let me ask twice." Uh, and Daredevil knows. He says, "Like I know I'm not stupid. I can hear the gears and turbines and all this stuff inside his suit whirling." He means what he's gonna say because each blast can level like a building. So I back off, and that's when Fist is taking like a sauna with his other associates, and one of them is kind of chewing him out stupidly. Uh, where it's like, you know, look, you went too far, and it's like, sure, maybe you go after somebody's family, but you don't level an entire neighborhood because that's bad for business and all this other stuff. He kind of really overstepped, and of course, right in front of everybody, because Fist has been spending so much time trying to legitimize himself, but now that he just murders one of them in front of the others, it's like, okay, he clearly you know, forgot himself. It's kind of like with Napoleon. Only reason he lost in the end because he overextended himself to the point where he lost favor among his own people, and and lost like the resources that he needs. It's similar to what's going on with Fisk. He ain't getting the support he typically would have gotten because there's too many people starting speaking up for themselves because you went too far in this petty vendetta, and you wasting too much of the resources in order to fund this vendetta. So it's all like making a massive turn for Fisk in this moment. Then Matt hears Cap running off the rooftops trying to get the attention of Daredevil, which he does. And he starts, to question what's been going on here because the guy was, wearing a flag on his face, and he was, and then Matt explains to him, his body was kind of like seemingly like plastic, and his bones seem like partially human. I don't know sure what's going on, but clearly these, like there's something rotten in Denmark here. And when Steve brought up about like he was wearing an American flag on his face, Matt's like, I haven't noticed. Clearly, because obviously hardly anybody knows that Daredevil's blind. So from this interaction, Steve then decides to go on his own investigation. He goes to don't know his Washington and stuff, but just finds the general, and it starts to question with the paper with about Nuke and the atrocities he's committed in Hell's Kitchen, and it's like, can you explain this to me? And I was like, Captain Rogers, look, we all have immense amount of respect for you, but frankly, this is above your pay grade. But we all thank you for your loyalty, though, over the years. And this is one of the best Captain America quotes we get right here. This is, one of his famous quotes. It's like, I'm loyal to nothing but the dream. So then this when he sneaks into uh, 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 the government database and finds out that Nuke is one of several failed attempts to recreate the Captain America Super Soldier project. Matter of fact, it was in Daredevil Born Again that's when Steve first realizes about all those other failed attempts in the first place. So he ends up going after Nuke, who ends up breaking out, killing the general and a couple other guards, and Cap ends up put a stop to him, knocks him out. But because he ends up overdosing on the red pills, it's obviously having like a negative effect. So Daredevil intercedes right when Cat was trying to carry him out, his unconscious body out of the building where they was fighting, and there was a helicopter spraying gunfire at them. Daredevil ends up rescuing them and trying to get Nuke before he dies, because he can hear that his pulse is weak and he's barely breathing. I gotta get him to the police station so you can let the cops know what's going on, but it's too late. Despite him being blind, stealing a car and trying to drive it, so of course he drives so wildly, he just barely avoiding crashing into stuff, but he ends up dying. So he's making a complete U-turn, goes directly to the Daily Bugle, takes his Nuke's dead body and lays it out on Ben Urich's desk. Like, here it is, so now with all the, well, I won't say how much concrete evidence to actually land Fisk in jail, but it's enough to really cripple his empire, where with the photos Gloria took in, Ben Urich's investigation, and with the whole Captain America thing and Daredevil stuff, that all like culminates to Kingpin. All his attempts for legitimizing his businesses is all out the window, especially how he's been treating his subordinates who think he's definitely gone too far. So it's like, yeah, like with Daredevil, at least you're not in prison, but your support is completely minuscule. Matter of fact, there is a two-parter to this. I think they made not sure how long after this, but they made another Born Again, but instead of Daredevil this time, it's Kingpin, where the way Kingpin did to Matt ends up doing to Kingpin. Don't know if I ever do a comic review for that, but that'll be interesting to talk about. So everything ends with Matt, helping Karen get cleaned up and rekindle some type of relationship with her. And he ends with, I'm at Murdoch and I'm Daredevil, and that's good enough. And that is Daredevil Born Again. It's a pretty cool story. Like I said, I really like the art in this. There's certain characters that are weak links, like Gloria. And certain dialogues, I think there's certain punctuations that need to be inserted in certain moments in the dialogue, because it seems like run-on sentences half the time for me. Kind of wish they the editor kind of looked at this. It's like, hey, can you put like a period or a comma here, because it kind of seemed like a run-on sentence. I noticed that as I was reading through this. It's kind of like, didn't sound right as I'm reading through it. But anyway, that was Born Again. A fun Daredevil story. The other Daredevil stories I really want to get to down the line, but not as of yet. There's another Marvel story I want to cover. Quite a few, actually. They kind of got like a theme going, but I'll leave it as a surprise. But in any rate, I will see you guys possibly a little bit later because I didn't play some Marvel Rivals yesterday. I kind of got a little tired. So I might pop in to play a little bit more of Marvel Rivals and playing as Storm. You know, I don't think I'm all that good with her. But I want to play at least a couple more times with her before I move on to Cloak and Dagger. Before we wrap up Black History Month. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you guys later. And leave a comment below to know what you think of Born Again. Are you looking forward to the TV show? And yeah, and I'll see you all soon.